Hello and welcome back to Raising Reef. In this new tank build series episode, I'm going to be running the return lines and the drain lines for my new system. So when it comes to plumbing a custom aquarium, you're pretty much left to your own devices. I recommend that you would draw out a plan of your tank and where you want to run the pipework and use that as a basis to work out what parts you're going to need. I've separated the parts that I've got up into sizes, and I have all of the 1-inch size pieces I'm going to be using here. I have some 25mm sizes and I have some 20mm sizes. All of the pipe is up here and I've got plenty of pipe just in case I need to make additional cuts. There are a few extra pieces that I've ordered just in case things change as you're putting things together and you realise you come across problems that you may not have foreseen in the design stage, and it's nice to be able to just work around those with parts that you've got rather than having to down tools, go out, try and find the bits you need, or even order them online and then wait for them to turn up before you can complete your project. This is called a gate valve. We use this to restrict the flow and it works by basically opening a gate. I don't know if you can see that there, but it's each turn slowly opens that up until you have it fully open. What you'll use this for is it will be on the main downpipe and you will restrict it to the point where the flow coming down this pipe almost exactly matches the flow that's coming up into the tank from your return, and that way you can create a complete siphon and this will make your tank silent. This particular piece isn't cheap. I think this run me about £60, and you might think, oh, that's a lot of money for a tap. Well, it is a lot of money for a tap considering you can buy a ball valve for under a tenner. The difference between this and a ball valve is this is designed to restrict flow. Ball valves are designed to turn flow off and turn flow on. They're not really designed to adjust flow. They can be used to adjust flow, but the ability to fine-tune a ball valve is difficult at best. And the longer it's on your tank and the more crudded up it gets, the harder it's going to be to make those fine adjustments. I think it's worth spending a little bit of money on something that is the right tool for the job, and I don't think you'll regret it one bit. This is a quality piece of equipment. This is solvent weld. You can buy these with a screw thread in them, which means you can then screw in a threaded pipe. I bought this one which was solvent weld, which I can glue a pipe into, but then this is where one of these union couplers is going to come into play. There will be one positioned either side of this, and then that means that this will always be able to be disassembled. You can always buy new ones of these parts. You can buy just this part on its own, which means that if you need to cut that other piece of pipe off and it's no good, you can buy another one of those, and then you can reuse this on another system with just gluing another piece of pipe. So that's when this £6 makes this last forever. So yeah, an expensive piece of equipment, but I think essential if you want to be able to adjust your tank and fine tune it to make it as quiet as possible. So I have some 25mm fittings here. I originally got the tank drilled for my return lines at 28mm, and I was looking at tank connectors to fit 20mm pipe, and the ones I was looking at online, I don't know if they were listed wrong or I was looking at the wrong size, but I mistakenly got 28mm holes drilled, and when I went to fit the 20mm couplers, which are 20mm size fittings, it barely had any bite around the edge of the hole, and I wasn't satisfied. I think it must have had probably 1 or 2 mil of actual contact around the edge. I wasn't satisfied that that was going to make a good seal. I just had to upsize the tank connectors that I was using, and then in turn I had to order just a couple of additional pieces in order to then reduce that down to the 20mm that I'm going to be using for the rest of the return lines. I also have union couplers for this size. These aren't the cheapest pieces of equipment to add to the tank, but they mean that it's pretty much invaluable if you need to disassemble your tank. I've got some solvent cement for sticking UPVC pipe together. This is just a Wix own version. What else have we got here? Right, I did buy a T-piece for this because I want to obviously split one return line up, and then it's going to go to 2 spouts coming through the back of the tank. I wish I picked up 2 of these because I found this tap which I'm going to be able to tee off of the return line, and I'll be able to feed my calcium reactor with that. And I've noticed that this will cut its own thread into this 20mm pipe. I'm going to be utilising that, but that works out really well. Other than that, obviously I've got some pipe. I just picked up an extra couple, so I've got them in the garage if I ever need them. I've got projects on the go. I'm like, oh, I've already got some pipe, I can utilise that. So we've got plenty of pipe there. I'm going to be cutting the pipe with just a normal handsaw. This works really well for cutting pipe. You can use anything to cut it. A handsaw works perfectly well. You can use a hacksaw, you can use a jigsaw. Anything that cuts wood and any other materials will be fine for cutting this plastic. Once you've cut it, all you need to do is just sort of run a little blade around the inside and outside just to take off any burr, and give it a little wipe, make sure it's clean, and you're good to go. That is pretty much all of the plumbing. Let's get on and start working out where we need to make some cuts. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is fitting the 2 tank connectors to the return line holes in the back of the tank. These are the 25mm fittings that I had to purchase to replace the 20mm ones that turned out to be too small for the holes, which in turn I will have to reduce down, but we can fit those quite easily. You just put a gasket either side of the hole, and then you just clamp it together. Do it up nice and hand tight, and that should be good enough. One side of this, when it sits on the glass, protrudes out further than the other. I've decided to stick those onto the back. It doesn't really matter which way around you put them, they work exactly the same way either side. I just prefer the lower profile part to be inside the tank so it isn't taking up quite so much room. It's just a personal preference. Other people might prefer it the other way around. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. So that's those 2 pieces fitted. Probably one of the easier jobs that we're going to be doing today. But now we can start working out how thick a piece of pipe I need to cut in order to fit the elbow onto the back, and then in turn where I want the reducers to be, and then we can continue on down into the sump. But before we do that, I'm going to be running the drain lines because that's a pretty straightforward affair. There isn't any T-junctions or anything like that to be put in, so this is quite a simple process. It's just going to be a down pipe. It's going to go with an elbow underneath the tank and then down into the sump, connecting to the gate valve. This is going to be pretty simple, so we'll start with that, and once those lines are all in place, we'll then be able to run these accordingly without getting in the way of the returns. So the first line I'm going to run is the drain line, and I'm going to be using the centre drain line from this overflow box as the primary drain line. This is the one that's going to have the gate valve in it and will be fine-tuned to create that complete siphon. I'm using the 1-inch pipe, and I can push that up into the fitting. I need to make sure that I've pushed it all of the way into the fitting as far as it will go, and then when I make my measurement I know that it's exactly the right length. If you haven't fully located the pipe, then when you've made your cuts and then you come to reassemble it, you may think, oh no, this pipe is shorter than I needed because it's now slipped further inside the fitting. So always make sure that you've located the pipe fully into the fittings before you take your measurements and do your cuts. I'm going to make a mark where I want the elbow to be fitted, because I'm now taking this pipe underneath the cabinet and then it will go down directly into the sump. So I'm making a little mark where I want that to be, and then I'm going to take into consideration how much extra I need to add onto this pipe to locate the pipe inside the fitting. I will use another piece of pipe to measure. I will place that on there. I will make a little mark, and that will give me the measurement. I can then use my tape measure to measure how much that is, and that's just over 20 mil. It's like 22 mil. So if I add 22 mil onto each section where I want my fittings to come, that will accommodate the part that slips inside the fitting. So that's all I need to do. Every measurement that I make, I just need to add 22 mil onto it, and I know that I've got the right size for the job. So pop that back up there. I've made my line. I will just make sure that I make that the right line, and I will cut that, and then we'll be ready to fit the next piece. So with this primary drain line fitted, we have now got the right height to fit our elbow and lead under the tank, where it will lead to a second elbow, which will give us a direct route down into the sump. So let's get those bits cut. So we have something like this. That fits on there like that, and then we now have an elbow leading under the tank and another elbow leading down into the sump. I've attached a small piece of pipe to this elbow, which will lead into the union joint, which will allow me to disassemble the pipework at a later date if needed. So the union joint goes on there like that. So with that piece in place, we can now add the gate valve. The gate valve just slots up inside there like that. And now we're ready for the rest of the pipework to fit down into the sump. This is where this piece of pipework with the elbow will come in. I will slot that into there, and that elbow at the bottom will stop the flow from getting directed straight down to the bottom of the sump. I'm going to have a little sand bed in the bottom of there, and I don't want it to get churned up, so I've put an elbow on there to adjust the flow so that it goes across the bottom of or across the middle section of the refugium, creates a nice swirling flow within that, but doesn't disturb the sandbed too much. So with that piece done, there was a second piece that I cut at the time of fitting the first primary drain line. This is the emergency overflow line, and again, another piece just like the other side that fits under there. Another union joint with a piece of pipe leading down into the sump. In the event that this gets clogged for any reason, say a snail manages to find its way down there, highly unlikely, but or some crud or something builds up in there and restricts the flow to the point where it starts to back up, this line will stop us from flooding the tank. I've fitted a union joint onto this one as well, so that if I ever need to remove the sump for any reason, I can unscrew that and these pipes won't be obstructing me from pulling that sump out. Also, I've left it a little bit shorter than the pipe beside it, and this is going to sit just above the water level, which means if it does back up and overflow, it will make a noise, and I will be alerted to the fact that the gate valve is being obstructed. If you had that below the water level line and you was unaware of the noise, it wasn't making any noise, you'd be unaware that there was an issue with the gate valve and the primary drain, and it could be weeks before it's brought to your attention. So that's pretty much it for the drain lines. I will probably add a couple of the union joiners at the top here, just underneath the tank connectors, so that I can disassemble all of this pipework away from the overflow box at any point in the future. If I dismantled the tank and these were still attached to the box, that would make the box and the pipes quite a bulky item to deal with. There's a chance that there could be pressure on the joints there and it could crack the bottom of the box. So in order to avoid that, I'm thinking ahead, and I'm going to put a couple of union joiners on there so I can remove the rest of this pipe off of the box itself. So let's run some return lines. So what I'm going to be doing with the return line is I'm going to utilise a piece of old pipe that I've already got. This is a piece of soft tubing that is attached to the hard tubing via what's called a hose tail. This is cemented into a fixture, which then allows you to put the pipe on top This has been secured with a couple of cable ties. What I will be doing is removing all of this and giving it a good clean. I don't need as much pipe as what's on here, so I'll be trimming that down also, and then I will connect it to my return pipe outlet. And then the other piece I will just cut where I need to, and then I will feed it onto my new pipework that I've yet to assemble. So when it comes to running the return lines, I'm going to start with the two tank connectors that I have connected to the back of the tank. If you remember, they're 25mm. I need to reduce those down to 20mm. I also need to find a way of connecting these two together and then running them down into the sump. I haven't drawn up a divisive plan about how I was going to do this, because a lot of these things are best worked out as you're doing them. The good thing about doing PVC pipe work is that you can assemble it all without it being glued together. It holds together reasonably well for this purpose, and then you can work out any kinks or any things you don't like about the setup, tweak them, and then when you're finally happy with what you've arranged, you can then disassemble it all, and then you can glue every part together. So first of all, we need to run some pieces of pipe over here. I need some elbows to bring these two pipes closer together, and then I need to join up with the T-junction and then down towards the sump. So I've taken some measurements about how far out I want these two pieces of pipe to come before I angle them towards each other in order to make my way around the overflow box, and then we're going to meet as close to the middle as we can with the T-junction and then run it down. So I've cut two pieces that should allow me to run the two 90-degree elbows towards the centre of the tank. We can now fit the elbows on, and now we can start to bring those two together. What I do need to do at this point is now reduce down the thickness of the pipe, so I will be using a couple of pieces of 25mm followed by the reducing piece, which is going to convert that from 25mm to 20mm. I then need two pieces that are going to join the T-piece, and they will fit in there like that. Now I need to undo one of these so that I can fit that on, and as you can see, we now have these two pieces of pipework fitted together. All I need to do now is work out a route down and then over towards the return pump, and then we can link it all together. So I've cut myself a piece of 20mm pipe that will fit into the T-section that joins the two outlets together, and now I've got a height that I can put another elbow onto and then start bringing it towards the return section. This piece of pipe is going to be just long enough, so I've got an elbow on each end of this pipe which will bring it in towards the return section, and then I can start making my way down onto that. I need to come down and then in, like so, and utilising the piece that I mentioned earlier, which was the old piece that I had lying around, I've shortened this piece of pipe, I've added the appropriate connector that fits to my return pump, and I've cut the rest that I didn't need off of this section away. I've also taken this piece apart, I've removed the flexible section and I've given it a good clean. I've also got inside the pipe and cleaned that out as well, so it's as good as new. I can connect that onto the elbow that I've brought down, and now you see that's just long enough. So with that fully tightened, I may need to make a few little adjustments to some of the lengths of these bits of pipe. So with all the pipe work now in place, all I need to do is establish where I want to put any extra union joiners in, so it will make it easier in the future to disassemble, either for cleaning or relocating the tank. I also need to pick up a 20mm T-junction that I'll be fitting into the return line, that will then have a tap on it that will feed the calcium reactor. Other than that, everything seems to be in place. I'm pleased with it where it is. I'm going to leave it for a few days and ponder it a little bit longer. I'm not in a rush with this project, so I've got a little bit of time. I'll probably stick all the pipework together at once, so I'll wait for the T-junction thing to turn up, and then I'll be able to fit the pipe, see about where it's going to run, and once I'm happy with everything, I will then start gluing all the pipework together. And then once that's all done, we can turn our attentions to the aquascaping. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.